Today's presenter is Rebecca Higgins. Rebecca has worked in community and social services for over 23 years, specializing in mental health education since 2010. She has designed and facilitated workshops and webinars for a wide range of groups, including educators, caregivers, artists, librarians, customer service professionals, and many more. In addition, Rebecca has served as a panelist and presenter at conferences, delivered keynote addresses on mental health, and provided consultation support to community mental health initiatives. Welcome, Rebecca, and I will stop sharing and let you share.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for this session. So let me just call this up, and we will be on our way. Okay, great. So as Lisa mentioned, you can share your responses or any questions in the Q&A. There's also going to be the chat open. So I'm going to be inviting you to do some reflection exercises as we go. And if you feel like sharing some of your responses in the chat, please do. So today we're talking about the value of recognition and appreciation in the workplace. A little bit about me there, but we covered that already. So no need to stay too long on that slide. Okay, so what are we doing today and why? So hopefully by the end of this webinar, you will be able to recognize a time in which you felt genuinely appreciated at work, identify strategies for recognizing and appreciating colleagues, and name one strategy to support yourself when appreciation from others is unavailable. Okay, so my first question for you, and I invite you to share your responses in the chat. Why bother? Why does appreciation at work matter? Boost morale, good. Absolutely, it improves overall performance when people feel valued. Makes us feel that we do a good job. Yeah, lots of great stuff coming in the chat. I'll just read a couple. Feel confident. Yeah, it helps us remain engaged in the workplace. It encourages staff. We all need to know when things are going well too, just when not going well. Absolutely. Retention, yes, builds teamwork, recognizes value, sense of pride, sense of purpose. When only hearing the negative, it's soul crushing, and we feel we belong. Yeah, people know that their hard work is not going unnoticed. Yes, and that matters. All of these things matter. Teamwork, absolutely. So it's good for individuals, it's good for teams, it's good for the patients and clients and families you work with, it's good for the organization as a whole. Great, thanks everyone. Feel free to keep sharing in the chat and folks can read what others are saying. So most of these, in fact, all of them, I think that you mentioned in your responses there. The value of recognition. So it's motivating individually and collectively. It helps us feel seen. It facilitates and strengthens connections. It increases compassion satisfaction, improves retention, and contributes to fostering a healthier workplace. And I see in the Q&A, staff will work better if they feel appreciation, will do better work. If they feel appreciated, absolutely, absolutely. Oops, sorry, I got greedy. I was trying to do too many things at once. I'll leave the Q&A to you, Lisa. How about that? And I'll look at the chat. Okay, so my next question for you, and this one we're going to do a little bit differently. This one I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Some of you may have been in webinars with me before, and I usually have reflection exercises. So what I'm going to invite you to do is for 3 minutes, jot down your responses to these questions, just on your own. Ideally, if you have something to write with and something to write on, that would be great. I always prefer analog paper or notebook, something nearby. If you'd rather just reflect on it, that's fine. If you want to type on your phone or computer, what's easiest for you is what matters here. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to reflect on these 2 questions, and then we'll go to the chat and I'll ask you a question there. We'll see what you come up with. So for on your own for now, my first question is, who is your appreciation role model? This could be someone inside or outside of work. I'll share mine with you after. Who is your appreciation role model? And question number 2 is what makes you feel appreciated? Because as we'll see, we're going to talk a little bit about the work of Gary Chapman and Paul White today and their 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. And among the things they talk about are it's important to be appreciated in the way that's most meaningful for us. So I would love to give you the opportunity to reflect on these 2 questions on your own. Who is your appreciation role model? And then what makes you feel appreciated? So we'll give you 3 minutes. So that right now is 07. And so we'll give you to 10 after. And then we'll come back and see what you came up with. Thanks, everyone. Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me in that reflection. It's 10 after, so let's continue on here. And I'm going to ask you, number 1, who is your appreciation role model? So I won't read through all of them, but feel free to pop in the chat. Who is your appreciation role model? Could be someone inside or outside of work. Beautiful. So leaders, previous leaders, peers. Good. It's really true. Sometimes it's a prior supervisor or leader, and we really keep that person with us, even though they're not supervising us anymore. Sometimes we really hold on to those morsels of appreciation and the way that they showed appreciation to others. That really does stay with us. Yeah, these are beautiful examples. Thank you so much. I see one person getting a couple of personal shout outs there. That's lovely. Great. I love that. So a number of different people, some personal, a lot of professional ones, current leaders, former managers and peers. Beautiful. Coworkers. Yeah, that's beautiful. So mine is, I have to say, is my mother. She is extremely good at letting people know that they're appreciated in really specific and meaningful ways. And she taught me to always do that whenever I can, let people know that they're doing a good job or that you appreciate them. And so when I was a kid, especially a teenager, I found this to be mortifying, but now I really value it. So I appreciate that, Mom. Yeah, great. Beautiful examples. Okay, thank you so much for those. So my next question is, and perhaps it's partly what you've learned from your appreciation role model or what you've learned along the way in your life, inside and outside of work. What do you find valuable? What makes you feel appreciated? I'm going to jot down some of the things you say, some of the themes, because we're going to come back to them a little while later. Ah, I see some people have read the book I'm referring to today, some of the same language there. Quality time, words of affirmation. I'll explain that a little bit later. Oh, these are beautiful. Beautiful. So some people are saying, I need time with people. Validation of challenges. Good. Recognition for hard work. Absolutely. Trust in my opinions. Yeah, that's great. A thank you. An honest, sincere thank you, sometimes even for little things. Beautiful. When my supervisor notices how hard I work and says that my work makes a difference. Yeah, that's beautiful. Acknowledgement, genuine care for your well-being, even outside of work. Yeah, I think appreciation is most meaningful and stays with us the most when it's not about how we're producing. It's not about our performance. It's about who we are. Understanding and empathy. Yeah, there you go. Recognizing the value of the work and the value of who I am. Oh, lovely. The small things that regularly happen out of nowhere. These are all beautiful examples. I love these. I love these. Anybody else have any other examples of what you want to share in the chat there in terms of what makes you feel appreciated? Owning up to correcting when director has blown something out of proportion and extend true thanks. Yeah, when other people take accountability for their mistakes and thank you genuinely. Yeah, beautiful. I'm just scanning through to see if I misreading any. Oh, that's great. Referrals to our competitors because of our great reputation as long-term care and a good place to work. When you've made a mistake, but that person already knows who you are. Yeah. So meaning that, you know, we all make mistakes, everyone does, but that doesn't sort of undermine, it doesn't undermine our value. And the other person still, still values us even when we make mistakes. So I'm seeing some themes here in terms of sincerity, understanding and empathy, our opinions being trusted, acknowledging. All of these things make us feel seen and heard, right? And that matters. That matters. And bragging about your efforts to other departments. Yeah, these are great. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, I might refer to some of these a little bit later. Thank you so much for sharing and doing these reflections with me. Okay. I know I'm putting you to work today. I do apologize. The next one is receiving appreciation. So this might be talking about one of the ones you mentioned. It might be jumping off of the last reflection, but I invite you to write about a time when you felt genuinely appreciated at work. Take a specific example and write about what happened, who was involved, and how did the appreciation impact you. And when we come back to the chat, I'll just ask about how it impacted you. But I invite you, if you can, and if you have the energy today, to respond to all 3 questions. I'll give you 3 minutes again for you to write about a time when you felt genuinely appreciated at work. So it's 16 after now. We'll come back at 19 after. I'm in a different time zone. That's why I'm not saying the hour, not to confuse anyone. We'll be back in 19 minutes after the hour. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So feel free to share in the chat how the incident of appreciation, or the example that you wrote about, how it impacted you. Okay, beautiful. An example here I'll read. I was helping another department. The supervisor of that department thanked me for helping, said how much my help meant to her team. Asked me if I needed anything to support my work for her team. I felt valued for my time and effort. Beautiful. How else did the appreciation impact you? Other folks said helped grow my confidence, surprised and proud, didn't know they noticed. Wonderful. I was nominated for a Pan-Canadian Award. The body approached my employer directly to inform them, not ask for permission. I found out afterwards I got a better position. Okay. Interesting. Anybody else in terms of how the appreciation impacted you? When we lost a client to overdose and my manager asked me what I needed because I was sad and I didn't want to be home alone. So she let me stay and do work in the back and covered the front for me. That's beautiful. I'm sorry that happened, but I love how your manager responded and validated how difficult that was and gave you options. It made me want to work harder, not to disappoint my manager. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. That is a manager, somebody's saying. Happy to hear there's some really supportive leaders out there and coworkers. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, great job. Great job. Feel free to add things in. I see. I was transferring knowledge and skills to a new executive director, and she was so appreciative of the work that I had done prior and made the transfer of work so smooth. I was proud of my work. Beautiful. Great job. These are wonderful examples. So I can see when we're talking about impacts, it had an impact on your self-confidence, perhaps your sense of self in the role. In some cases, it led to a different position, or it smoothed the transition to a new position. Certainly, it strengthened the relationship amongst team members. people felt seen and heard, and that that can't be minimized, just how important that is, especially in difficult moments. So yeah, those are beautiful examples. Thank you so much for those. Okay, so in this article about recognizing nurse leaders, I got a few tips from there, and I wanted to share some of those with you here. So recognition, now to clarify, I mostly say appreciation in this workshop. Sometimes appreciation and recognition are used interchangeably. In the book, 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace by Chapman and White, that I'm going to refer to a little bit more, they do talk about how the distinction between recognition and appreciation being that recognition is often performance-based and tends to leave people out and doesn't necessarily hit the mark in the same way that appreciation does. But we can also use it. Some of the other articles I consulted used it interchangeably, so don't get too bogged down in the language. So Hendler notes that, quote, meaningful recognition recognizes someone's actions and their impact on others. It comes from patients, families, staff, peers, board members, and others within the organization. And that certainly, from the examples you've shared here, it came from different pockets of the organization where you work. So I appreciate that. So now we'll speak just briefly about the languages of appreciation in the workplace according to Chapman and White. So this is one way to look at and consider the different ways that we like to be appreciated. So in the work they've done, they found that about half of employees favor words of affirmation. Certainly, I would say that that would be my go-to choice in terms of validation from colleagues and supervisors in the past. But it's not the only way that people appreciate or receive appreciation. And ideally, we want to offer appreciation that matches the language that's most valued to the individual we're appreciating. So words of affirmation are letting people know in specific and meaningful ways what you value about them. Quality time, as some people mentioned, sometimes quality time is with the supervisor, but sometimes quality time might be spent with colleagues, other people we work with, and that can be a really valuable way to show and receive appreciation as well. Some people prefer acts of service. So in the workplace setting, this would be, if somebody offers to help me out with my workload or to do some of the more tedious tasks so that I can focus on one particular task that's important to me in the moment, offering to help with my work, that could be considered an act of service in the workplace. Gifts, of course, could range from anything to gift cards to time off where that's possible, to food on the unit or in the workplace, different kinds of gifts that might be appropriate. Although in the research that Chapman and White said, they said that gifts are probably the least tangible gifts are the least important to people in terms of how they're appreciated. So sometimes employers might spend time and money on the gifts, but that's only hitting the mark for some of the people who need to be appreciated in the workplace. And then finally, touch. So of course, this book is inspired by the 5 Love Languages book. And so they pulled out the ones that, no, I'm sorry, I don't think it's 5. It might be more than 5. Anyway, they pulled out the ones that might be relevant in the workplace and focused on those. So I put touch in brackets because this is a tricky one. It's not necessarily appropriate. So when we're talking about touch, it could be a literal pat on the back, a high five, a fist bump, a hug in some cases. But it's really important that before we offer this kind of appreciation, it's really important that we are confident about how it's going to be received, that's what the person actually wants and feels comfortable with. So I put that one in brackets because, of course, we do have to be particularly careful with that one because sometimes that can be more distressing for people than supportive. So depending on their own experiences, the relationship, the environment, and so on. So just something to think about, the different types of languages of appreciation in the workplace. What are the kinds of things that matter to you? So I'll invite you to take a look at that list and choose one that you think is how you like to be appreciated. Might be more than one, but just choose one for now. I'm going with words of affirmation because in my experience, that has what has landed best for me in terms of appreciation. But it might also be quality time, acts of service, gifts, or touch. So just keep an eye on that for yourself as we are continuing along through this session. Any questions about this or anything you want to add at this point? Yeah, sincere gratitude. Sincerity is so important. It has to be genuine. Otherwise, don't bother, I think. Yeah, so acts of service in this, somebody asked what acts of service are. So in this setting, it's when, for example, a coworker or a manager might offer to help you with your work, for example, with your workload, to do maybe some more tedious tasks, or something that can help you to get your work done. So demonstrating their appreciation to you through acts of service. There's usually acts of service related to work, but it could be, offering you a ride home or facilitating something that makes the transition home easier. But for the most part here, when we're talking about acts of service in the workplace, we're talking about helping people out with their work, offering to help out with their work, not just going ahead and doing it. Yeah, money. So absolutely. So when we're talking about appreciation, in fact, although it's kind of different than money because absolutely that matters, and that's a primary reason why we work, absolutely. And for some, but it needs to be done genuinely, of course, and it needs to be meaningful for us. So for some people, that's more of a priority in this moment than others, depending on what else is going on for them, what kind of resources they have access to or don't, what else is meaningful for them in work. So yeah, sometimes people would like more time, sometimes they'd like more money, but yeah, that could be a whole category on its own for sure. Thank you for that. I would like an extra day off with pay. Good. Interesting. I had a manager leave noise canceling headphones on my desk when I was working hard on technical things and having trouble concentrating in a cubicle style office back when these were super expensive. Yeah, that's a nice gesture. So what's lovely about that example is that the manager paid attention to the fact that you were having trouble concentrating, because certainly that is my experience as well. I find it really hard to concentrate on things. Sometimes I can't have background noise. So they knew you well enough to know that would be a supportive thing to give you, which might have been partly why it was so valuable. Yeah, absolutely. So people are saying, a financial bonus accompanied with words of affirmation. Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah. And I should say that I am not suggesting that languages of appreciation or appreciation in the workplace at all, that this negates the need for systemic change, or that this makes everything okay, that this rights the wrongs that are happening in the workplace. That's not my suggestion at all. I just want to make sure that that's clear, that this isn't a one size fits all kind of approach. There's lots of different ways we can appreciate each other. And this is not going to fix all the ills of the systems or of the individual workplaces or of difficult relationships at work and so on. It's not a magic pill, but it is something that we can do something about. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we can actually do that. It is one piece of the puzzle. Okay, so now we're shifting away from how it feels when we're appreciated. I like to focus on someone that you appreciated this last week. So review the last week, and I'll give you 3 minutes to do this one again. And I invite you to jot down for yourself, who did you appreciate and why? And how can you express your appreciation? So it doesn't necessarily have to be someone that you actively explicitly appreciated already. It could be just someone you thought, oh, that was lovely. So I'll invite you to reflect on that now. We will come back at 3:33 or 12:33, wherever you are, and we'll see where we're at. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so let's come back and see what you came up with. We'll focus on the last question. How can you express your appreciation? We'll just leave it open for a moment. If anybody wants to share. Beautiful. Online appreciation cards. I'm going to give you a link for that, but I see you've already got something set up there. That's beautiful. I love this idea that people keep coming back to in terms of small things. And that's what we can do. Life is about small moments. Life is about the small things, the small changes we can make. And so many of you mentioned that what you appreciate is when people notice the small things or just a small gesture matters. And so that happens on the other side as well when we acknowledge other people's things. And it might seem small, but the impact can be significant, like a pebble in the lake. Oh, beautiful. So I'm seeing things like saying thank you, gifts, sending electronic cards, genuinely thanking people for showing up, intentionally making time for people to express your gratitude on a genuine level. Beautiful. Paying attention to someone's likes. So if they like a Starbucks latte, bring one as a thank you. That's beautiful. Great idea. In a self-care event we had, created handmade thank you cards. I love that. I thanked my husband, sending an email, very carefully phrased, and copy their supervisors or manager. Hug. Beautiful. So a vast array of different things, right? And it depends on the relationship. It depends on the kind of appreciation that the other person wants and desires and feels validated by. Such beautiful examples here. Some of this might have been one-on-one, some of it might have been in public. And we'll talk a little bit about that because there are different ways too within that. Even within words of affirmation, there's lots of different kinds of things that people appreciate. For example, some people would rather have one-on-one or electronic, not face-to-face. And some people really do appreciate public acknowledgement. And it's not good or bad, it's just different. So as you get to know or continue to get to know your coworkers, you'll get a feel for what works and what doesn't, how other people receive appreciation. In terms of giving some compliments for coworkers, here are some examples or things to think about from this article on idealist.org, how to praise someone professionally, compliments for coworkers. So this isn't just limited to the healthcare setting, but it's certainly relevant for you as well. So be specific, and people have mentioned that in what you've said in the chat already. I really think that's important if it's possible to be specific about what it is, why you appreciate that person or their work. Recognize effort over outcomes. I love this. We're always sometimes our workplaces encourage us, and certainly our society encourages us to be very outcome oriented, but very often it's the effort that matters, and recognizing that somebody has done what they can and they showed up in the way that that they're able to. I think that's important, recognizing effort over outcomes. Choose ands over buts. So we don't want to do that thing that we do inadvertently sometimes. Certainly I've done it, where you're offering a compliment, but then you sort of negate what you've said with a but. I really appreciate you arriving on time, but please stop taking my parking spot. So the please stop taking my parking spot is what's going to land with the person. That's what's going to stay with them. So keep it separate. If you're talking about compliments, don't weaponize compliments if your goal is to let the person really feel appreciated. And be gracious in accepting praise as well as giving it. I think this opportunity for modeling can be a beautiful way to let other people in the organization know that we not only enjoy appreciating others, but that we can receive appreciation. I know someone who sometimes struggles with receiving compliments, and I call it tennis ball compliments. Like you're throwing a tennis ball at the person and just comes whipping back at you. So maybe the onus is on me then in this moment to find out what ways does this person want to be appreciated. Maybe that's something that I can do some more work around. Just returning to the chat and reading some of the things here. Oh, beautiful. Sometimes the people we are supporting are more challenging and it's not obvious. Yeah, so recognizing, when people recognize what's difficult and what feels invisible, that can be very meaningful in whatever way that appreciation lands in a way that works for us. Oh, I love that. Workplace culture council. Oh, that's beautiful, to address the importance of appreciation throughout the entire organization. Beautiful. Huh. I just learned to say because instead of but. I like to know why people appreciate me. Yeah, great point. Thank you, everyone. Great observations and examples here. So some other tips around meaningful recognition. It can be helpful to send a note. I like that one because it's something that the person can refer to later, or I can refer to later. Some people might have a file of hope or some other, whether they keep it actually or keep it in their head, these little touchstones that we can return to in the more difficult moments on the more difficult days. So sending a note of some kind, whether it be electronic, whether it be a little thank you card, something, I think sending a note can be a beautiful way to recognize someone and let them know that you've appreciated them. Sometimes it can be helpful to acknowledge an act of kindness in the moment. We're not always able to do that for lots of reasons. And I think something is better than nothing. But, if you're able to thank them or acknowledge them later, that's okay too, in my opinion. But sometimes when we can acknowledge an act of kindness in the moment or soon after, it can land more significantly for the other person and also be an important interchange for us as well. And so the last one, in terms of praise peers in public. So that was the recommendation from this Hendler article, but I would say that isn't always appreciated by everyone. Some people really appreciate that. Some people would rather not be in the spotlight. So, get to know the person and find out, people on your team, people you care about, people you work with, how do they like to be praised? There's also even in public has different connotations, right? So it could be at a staff meeting, maybe that's too public for some. It could be a note to their supervisor, which would be less public. There's different ways that you can do that. I love these examples that are coming up in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of homework, but I know that you're extremely busy, so you do not have to do this. It is completely optional. But I'm going to invite you to commit to showing appreciation to the person you wrote about a moment ago. Many of you may have already appreciated that person, have already let them know in one way or another that you appreciated them. So that's fine. If you've already done it, you don't have to. You can choose somebody else, or you can just sit with it and appreciate yourself for appreciating them. But if you are looking for a way to appreciate that person, to demonstrate your appreciation for them, there are different possibilities. One that I use sometimes is on grateful.org, and you can send an e-card expressing your appreciation. Free e-cards available on the grateful.org site if you are interested in showing appreciation to the person you wrote about a moment ago, if you haven't already. Okay, so no matter how we communicate it, no matter how people receive it, whatever language they prefer to receive appreciation, I think it's important that it is specific, meaningful, and genuine. When I asked you about times that you felt really appreciated and examples of how you appreciate others, these themes came up. I noticed in many of the ways that you answered, there were lots of examples that were specific, meaningful, and genuine. And I think all of these are so important because we need to know that the person really sees us, really sees our work, and really values us as a person. Okay, so sometimes we don't get the appreciation that we need. Sometimes people don't give us what we need. Sometimes they might not want to, or they're not able to. So how do you support yourself when you are feeling unappreciated? As I think an important part of this workshop as well, we need to reflect on, okay, recognizing we can do what we can do, but we can't actually make other people appreciate us. So what can we do when we're feeling a paucity there, when we're feeling a lack? What can we do to support ourselves? So I'll invite you to jot down some examples for yourself or share in the chat. How do you support yourself when you are feeling unappreciated, when you're not getting the appreciation that you need at work? Beautiful. So I'm seeing cry, chocolate, and try and be understanding of the other. Self-affirmation. I take a walk in a forest to smell the spicy pine trees. That's beautiful. Chocolate, Starbucks, nature walk. Yeah, I have some combo of that as well. That really works. Long massage at a spa. Great. Yoga. Good. Positive affirmations and check in with mobile response team and make a new meal. Unload to someone you trust. Know that you've done your best. I have safe colleagues that I can vent to briefly, then I let it go. These are wonderful strategies. Mindfulness and meditation, walking, have a glass of wine, spend time with my dog. Subtly fish for a compliment from someone I know will give it. Courageous conversations with my pooch. Oh, I love this selection of responses. I keep challenging myself. Good. Try not to heap on past issues or do fortune telling that the future will get worse. Yeah, we do have a tendency to pull in past things or jump to the future in order to shore up the narrative we're experiencing in the moment. Reach out to management to let them know what your needs are. Yes, if that feels possible and safe in your workplace for you to do, absolutely. Rage room, I am doing that for the first time next week. Very excited. Appreciate others and demonstrate this is celebrated. Yes. Look for another job. Yes. Sometimes that's what you need to do. I look in the mirror and say, I want to thank me for lovely listening to music, punching bag at home, forget about it and pay attention for the things that make you happy. Reading a book, be gentle on the heart. I just tap my own shoulder and say, it's okay. These are beautiful responses. I love everything that you're saying here. And many of these I haven't tried and I'm going to add to my own list. Thank you so much for sharing these beautiful ideas. I have a few suggestions as well to add to what you said here. When you're not getting the appreciation you need, acknowledge and accept your feelings instead of trying to talk yourself out of it. You know, I should feel grateful I have this job, or, you know, I should. Don't should all over yourselves. It's fine. You have a right to your feelings, and accepting that that's how you feel in this particular moment is better for you than trying to squelch them, push the feelings away, or talk yourself out of them. But feelings are not facts. They give us information, but they're temporary. So making space for them, letting them be there is a service to ourselves when we're able to do that. Express genuine appreciation to others. And people said that as well. And showing that that's, you know, getting some satisfaction as well. And recognizing, as somebody's saying in the chat there, putting yourself in the other person's shoes as well, recognizing it might be difficult for them to express appreciation, or perhaps the way they express appreciation is not the way you prefer to receive it. But in expressing your genuine appreciation to others, you have the opportunity to demonstrate that to others and to also feel that connection that comes from appreciating others. You might choose to reflect on your impact. So sometimes looking at you know, there might be other kernels of goodness sprinkled through the days that you can, sometimes we just know in our gut or in our hearts, okay, I did that well, or that felt good, or that was a good interaction. And so, you know, and looking too over time at the impact you've had on others, that can be a significant thing as well. Look inward. So sometimes, you know, if I'm feeling particularly unappreciated, sometimes that means that some of my other needs aren't getting met. Sometimes it means I'm depleted. It's not to talk myself out of the feelings, but it's also to look inward around why am I doing the work that I'm doing? What's the intrinsic value for me? And so getting the appreciation from within when it's not available from outside sets the foundation for us to have that that kind of well that we can turn to within ourselves when we need that support and we're not getting it from outside, or we're not getting it the way we would like, and we need to turn to what we can offer ourselves. Validate yourself, and people gave great examples of that. Connect with your people, communicate. So if it's possible to communicate to others, what your needs are, if it feels possible to do that, you have energy and space and time and safety to communicate clearly what your needs are to others, recognizing that communicating your needs is wonderful. It won't necessarily mean that the other people are going to meet them, but communicating them clearly can mean that you're taking part and parcel, you're taking responsibility for your part of the web there. And do what's best for you. And so what I mean by that is to take care of yourself in many of the ways that you mentioned, to spend time in nature, to soothe yourself in various ways. Sometimes do what's best for you means changing positions or changing workplaces. I know that's easier said than done, but certainly if this is a pattern or in an ongoing way, you're not feeling that work is giving you what you need, sometimes that can be an option for people as well. Whereas while I also appreciate that it's not always the easiest thing, and there might be barriers that stop us from looking or leaving for other work, but know that that can be an option as well, sometimes if it's not the right fit. I love Maya Angelou's quote on this. I learned a long time ago, the wisest thing I can do is be on my own side, be an advocate for myself and others like me. So we're just going to, let me do a quick time check. Good, yes. So what we're going to do here is I just want to introduce you to this exercise. This particular exercise is new to me. I've been reading this book called When Life Hits Hard, How to Transcend Grief, Crisis, and Loss with Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. You may have heard of Russ Harris. He's done a lot of work on acceptance and commitment therapy. But I wanted to just introduce this to you again. It's new to me, so I'll need the book to help me with this one. He talks about how dropping anchor, as he calls it, can help us to ride out emotional storms. And so this can be helpful in those moments where we feel tossed about by our feelings or by the circumstances we're in. It can help us to ground a little bit and to get through those moments, to cope a little bit better with what life is throwing at us. Sometimes we're able to do this exercise in the moment. Sometimes it might be later or before or after a stressful situation. But we'll go through this and you can feel free to take it or modify it or chuck it out the window, whatever works for you. So the first part of dropping anchor, or the ACE formula, as Harris calls it, is to acknowledge your thoughts and feelings. So just right now, just pay attention to what's coming up. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories, sensations. And Harris says it can be helpful to, instead of personalizing it, instead of saying, I am anxious, you could say something like, here is anxiety, or this is anxiety showing up, or I'm noticing anxiety. Sometimes this small change allows us to have a little bit of distance from our feelings instead of identifying too much with them. So acknowledge what's coming up for you in this particular moment. Just name it to yourself. You don't have to change it. In fact, that's not the goal of this exercise. It's to weather it, not to change it. You could say, whatever's relevant for you. I'm having scary thoughts. I'm having thoughts about being a bad person. Here is anxiety. Here is fear. I'm noticing irritation. And the next tip is C. Come back into your body or connect with your body. So do this in a way that is manageable for you today. You might choose to press your fingertips together. You might slowly push your feet onto the floor or straighten your back and your spine if that's comfortable. You might stretch your neck or your arms. If none of these are accessible for you today, you might choose to move your eyes from side to side. You might raise your eyebrows and then lower them. you might choose to focus on breathing in and out. And finally, the last part of dropping anchor in the ACE formula is to E, engage in what you're doing. Harris reminds us that anchors don't make storms go away. They help us to have a little bit more control over our responses without getting swept away by our feelings and thoughts. So to engage in what you're doing, you could just notice what you're doing right now. Notice how your butt feels in the chair, your back feels against the chair. You might look around the room and name to yourself 5 things you can see right now. Something that helps you to engage in what you're doing and bring yourself back into the room. So in this way, in this simple exercise, we're allowing our feelings and thoughts to be there without getting swept away by them. We're using something comfortable and manageable to connect back with our bodies, to bring us back into our bodies instead of getting lost in our thoughts and feelings. And we're engaging in the activity we're doing, engaging in the world around us in this particular moment. This is a simple mindfulness exercise that can be helpful when you need a soothing moment or a moment to ground. Okay, now is the time for questions or comments. Does anybody have anything that wasn't clear that they'd like me to clarify? Any suggestions that you have found helpful? Or anything else you'd like to add at this point? Speaking of appreciation, I know that you're all very busy, and I very much appreciate you taking the time to spend this hour with me today. This is a new workshop for me, so I appreciate you kind of helping me pilot it a little bit. Feel free to reach out to me if you are interested in other workshops or you have any questions. There's my contact info on the screen there.
These are some of the services that are available to you on the Care for Caregivers website, so please check that out. And thanks so much for attending, everyone.